it was a great day for the Oilers, I think, especially if you're an Oiler fan. You can see that Jeff Jackson has a plan in mind. I really like, looking at it as a kind of macro view. I really like how he got a lot of things done early. It's not the easiest thing to do in free agent season, getting everything done right around July 1. Players don't like to sit around. Players on the team like to have a sense of what's going on with their roster and their team for the next year. So he's pretty much got a lot of things done. There still are some boxes to check off and probably some players to move, but for the most part, I thought he did a great job early.
Just going off of that, and does this come from being that agent role and maybe having more of a finger on the pulse in terms of modern day players, how they interact, how you do business, as opposed to, and nothing against Ken Holland, but a bit of an older executive in the NHL and maybe doing things in an older fashioned way? How much does that, or would that factor into, as you mentioned, getting this business done early and getting guys on good deals and just the positivity surrounding all of the signings?
No, I think that's a great thought and great comparison. He's been on both sides of it now. And I just know for players, listen, I wasn't a guy that on July 1st, people were throwing tons of money at me and I was choosing from multiple deals. I mean, I had 1 year, I think, where I was deciding between two teams. That was about all the excitement of my free agency. But for a lot of these players, especially the ones that know they're going to end up somewhere, it's nice to get something done early so that you can kind of go about your summer and the guys on the team know what's going on. So Jeff understands that. I think, I don't want to say he's taking direction from guys on the team, but there's communication and the way he's working things out now, you can definitely see that was a factor in what he wanted to do. And that was re-signing a number of key players from last year, especially that entire third line. Getting that whole third line back was, I think, about the most important thing that he could have and did do. I didn't think Rico was coming back. We were sitting there on the desk and I was not hearing very good things about him coming back. Maybe he looked at the market, looked at, what he had in front of him and decided, hey, this is probably my best option in terms of money, stability, and to win a championship. And then adding in some nice players to kind of round out what they already have going. So he's a smart guy, and honestly, he showed that. I will say that, this is nothing against Jax. I never knew too. You see Kent Hughes, who went to Montreal. You never really know how these guys in agency roles are going to attack and actually going to perform in their roles. And man, I will say that I think he really knocked it out of the park.
Does he need to hire a GM, really? That's kind of the next thing where he's like, I don't really want the role, but you've just, as you said, hit it out of the park here. Kind of a funny predicament.
I think it's coming.
Yeah.
I think it's coming. I think it's coming soon. I don't want to put a timeline on it. I don't want to say a couple weeks, but I do think it is coming soon. I have an idea of what's going to happen. It's probably something I'm not going to say on stream today, but I do think Oiler fans should be probably ready for something that's going to happen, because I think he is going to start delegating some power. There are still some things that need to be done, right? You look at the roster, it's not working right now. What are they, $2 million?
Yep.
$2 million over. They still got a bridge, probably Broberg and Holloway, depending on what they do. I think Holloway's a perfect bridge deal. Broby, I'm not sure what route they're going to take with them, but with the space they have, it looks like a bridge as well. So you got to look at maybe some veterans moving out the other way. I think you guys know who I'm talking about. So there's still definitely some work to be done, and I expect the new GM to come in and help out with that.
Luke, I'm going to read you a quote I saw on Twitter. The kids call it X, and you know how people are always very friendly and polite on Twitter, and
they're the best,
always courteous. I mean, we all know that, right? Here, I want to read this to you. Luke Gazdic has Stuart Skinner as Team Canada's starting goalie for the Four Nations Cup next year. One of the worst hockey analysts of all time. Now, I did look at this fella's profile on X, and
I guess where he's from.
We all guessed it. Yeah, I think maybe he's a little bit saddened, maybe a little bit.
I hear that in the quote. Yeah.
But honestly, we were talking about this yesterday on the Hangout, and at this point, how can you argue with that? with Stu Skinner.
I truly do. When I am doing my work and going about my business, I don't want to say I don't try to lean Oilers, but I'm in a position where I have to, right? I'm on a national stage now where I have to kind of look at everybody and not be prioritizing Oiler players. But as you go through this, especially in net, like who else other than a goalie that took you to within one goal in Game 7 of the Stanley Cup Finals, had an outstanding back half of the season. Yeah, he had a blip in the second round, but came back stronger than before and led that team to a very close shot at a Stanley Cup. So outside of him, I had Aiden Hill as my backup, who's had some injury trouble. I love Jordan Binnington. I know him here from Toronto. Feisty guy. When he gets going, there's not too many better goaltenders in the league. I'm telling you that. This kid is unbelievable. But to me, if you're putting this on the world stage right now, Stu's the guy. He's in net for me.
Well, and Luke, you're getting a little backup as well in our YouTube Nasty Chat. Dean Belanger says TSN panel also had Skinner as the starter for Canada, so it isn't just you. And again, I guess you could argue too that it's, if not him, who else? But that shouldn't go against Skinner and the body of work he's done. I think that stands alone on itself, as it should. Luke Gazdic joining us, Sportsnet analyst as well from the Mitsoff pod. I wanted to just circle back, Luke, and you mentioned, we talked about the additions and the returning players for this Oilers team in terms of free agency, but you mentioned, I think we all know, we're looking around 91 Evander Kane, a Ryan McLeod. How do you see the Oilers kind of cutting this final little crop of hair off and getting cap compliant and this roster shaking out for puck drop? Is it McLeod moving? Do you find a way somehow to Kane, LTIR? What kind of path would you see this management team taking in terms of how you get the cap down to where it should be now?
Yeah, it's interesting to see how it's going to play out, because there's just not enough spots to go around. And I think that's the simplest way to put it. I don't know the injury status with Kaner. So that's the biggest thing. Like, if he is truly hurt, and not truly hurt, but if he's applicable for surgery or whatever it is, that's an LTR candidate waiting to happen. But in terms of his no move he has no move, not no trade. I will say this about these no moves. I absolutely love the players that are sticking it right back to the GMs who want to move them. And I understand that might not go over incredibly well, but as a player who's been in that position, I understand it can be tough for fans sometimes to have sympathy for guys that are making millions of dollars, but these are also human beings too. And when you sign a contract, you are signing your life, and you are moving your life and your family to a particular place with the hopes of being there for multiple years. I look at the situation that's happening in New York right now with Jacob Trouba, and I just throw Evander in there just because you sign these deals. And I mean, if GMs don't like it, they should not be handing them out, because as soon as they turn around to a guy and say, actually, we changed our mind, we're going to move you, that's really tough to do to a guy. So Evander's the most intriguing one for me, just in terms of how they're going to go about that, what the injury status is. And then, I mean, a guy like Clowder it makes sense for another team to maybe come along and say, hey, we can give this guy a better opportunity, probably maybe give him some special teams in terms of power play, if that's where they want to go, get him out of the bottom six. I just think for Clowder, he's had, I don't want to say he's had a lot of chances, but he's shown that he has all the skill in the world and can skate like the wind, and just really hasn't been able to produce probably as big offensively. He's turning more into a penalty kill guy, but maybe there's an opportunity somewhere else with another team that can use him in a bigger role. And then on the back end, it obviously looks pretty backed up.
Well, and Dusty mentioned too for the back end that perhaps, I mean, you've clearly, and we're talking, not enough seats in the forward group. I think goaltending, we don't have to grace on that too much. And I kind of like, I've been talking about this too. I think bringing back Pickard, good guy in the room, not a guy looking for his own career selfishness or anything. I think that's a perfect, guy to be beside a guy like Stuart Skinner, where you're now going all in. And you mentioned the Olympic, all these things. He is now the guy. There's no more like 1A, 1B, or maybe this guy, he's here in case this is it. There's a clear path. There's a straightforward glance at this thing. So I like that as well. And I think building from Bakersfield as well, the goaltending is fine. But the blue line, maybe a trade deadline area here where they beef up on that, right? Heading into next season and heading into another playoff push. Because, I mean, you read the detractors online and so the Oilers, again, will have to outscore their problems on the back end. I don't know how much you subscribe to this here, Luke.
I don't exactly subscribe to it. I like the way their blue line set up. It's just how they're going to construct it. Obviously, Broby made some steps. He'll be a full-time player next year. Do you put him on his strong side? If you do, then, I mean, you have 2 more years of Kulak at what, 2.75? You signed 2 right-handed shot defensemen in Josh Brown and Troy Stetcher. Do one of those guys end up getting sent down? I don't know. They're both on one-ways. Stetch is minimum. He's probably the easiest one. This is a training camp battle for me, to be honest. Definitely with a couple spots that come up, and it can be tough to show your worth in 2 weeks at training camp, but there's a couple guys on the blue line that are going to have good camps in order to lock up a roster spot. And, I mean, you hate to say it. I think Cody Ceci had a great run in the playoffs, but he just looks like probably the easiest guy that could potentially be moved out with the salary that he makes.
Yeah.
But I think this comes down, especially when the new GM comes in. I think the defense core is probably the number one thing on their list where they're like, hey, we got to figure this out. And then from there, you let it run into camp and see who comes in the best shape, see who comes in with a good head on their shoulders and playing some good hockey, and you go from there.
And final one for you, Luke, just taking a look around. I always like to keep an eye on the neighbors. You like to peek over the fence, see what everybody else is doing kind of close to home. And within the Pacific, I mean, again, I look at the Canucks, DeBrusk, Desharnais as well. We're talking Oilers defenseman here, oddly enough. But I think the Nashville Predators had a fairly interesting free agency. Barry Trotz, quite aggressive. Your thoughts on what they did and how that's going to translate moving into next season?
I love what Nashville did. I just love when teams go out and make big swings, especially when a player like Stammer's available.
Yeah.
The whole Stamkos situation kind of unfolded before our eyes as we were in the studio at Sportsnet, and I know it was coming, but man, we were still like, we had him on the phone like 20 minutes after it happened, I think 25 minutes after it happened. And Colby Armstrong asked him what happened here. And he just kind of paused and he's like, I'm still trying to figure that out too. And we were shocked. Like this seems like it all fell apart. And I cannot stress how much I do not like that situation and the way he was treated. It ultimately seems like they tried to push him out, but good on Barry Trotz to go and pick him up. You pick up a 40-goal Conn Smythe winner in Jonathan Marchessault, and probably one of the best available, if not the best available left-handed shot defenseman in Brady Shea. That ultimately flips your lineup around. They have some young kids, Tommy Novak, Luke Evangelista, that are coming along. You re-sign Alex Carrier in the back end. You get your goalie locked up. Like, Nashville's a threat. Nashville just became a threat. I think they showed last year in making the playoffs that they were headed in the right way, but I really didn't know the direction of their team. I thought this was more of a rebuild coming, but man, this is about as retool as you can do, and signing 2 guys like that to add into your locker room, man, they did a really good job.
And I agree. I think I like Trotz's approach to all this, and plucky and pesky, I think, last season as well, flirting with that wild card in and out. But this is across the board. You mentioned goaltending, blue line, and of course the forward group stocking the shelves there. So we'll be looking out for that. Luke, again, we appreciate your time this season, man, and you've been a real team player. I know you're going over well with the ladies and the guys that listen to the show. So keep it up in terms of the voice and the looks. Once again, though, where can people find you during the summer months, digesting your work and elsewhere online?
So I have probably some pretty cool content coming this summer. Mitts Off Pod. You can find us on Instagram, Twitter, especially TikTok. TikTok's a huge one for our Mitts Off account. And then I'm working on being back on Sportsnet next year. So I won't be doing too many hits and stuff this summer, but you should see me back on the TV next year. Looking forward to doing some more TV analysis. I got a question for you guys, though. How are my Argos doing? I heard you talking CFL before we got on here.
Oh, baby, your Argos. I love how you say your Argos. I am hoping, I'm loving to, I want to see you in a double blue jersey at one of these games on the TV, cheering away. Argos are doing good this year, man. I mean, 2-1. They're in tough tonight. It's a great matchup down in Regina against the 3-0 Rough Riders, albeit Riders' starting quarterback is out. But the Argos are looking good, man. They had some controversy of themselves off the field, but a young go-getter and a similar type of hairstyle as well as yours and Cameron Dukes. So I think there's a little something here, maybe a Dukes jersey in double blue for you coming soon, courtesy of our friends at Pro Am Sports.
Yeah, a Duke's jersey in baby blue specifically.
Baby
in the
blue
baby
for the,
blue for
the
eyes, right? I mean, there's obviously a
All
lot
right,
of
I'll
chatter.
look into it, boys. I do want to thank you guys too, though, and all the listeners, man. This was one of my favorite things to do weekly this year. You guys are as professional and as classy as it gets, and I thoroughly enjoyed it too. So hopefully you guys enjoy your summers, and anyone listening, go Oil.